We do have a special speaker this morning. His name is First Sergeant Alvin Elderage. He was a part of the United States Army. He's now retired. He spent 20 years serving his country all over the world, all over this country, and in the First Gulf War. He's become a friend of mine over the past year as we worked together to facilitate a support group for veterans with PTSD. We meet on the second and fourth Thursday night of every month out in the Village of Honor in Benzie County. And we have several veterans who come and participate in that, most from the Vietnam era, but some from others as well. I'm going to invite First Sergeant Alvin Eldridge to come forward right now and bring us our message this morning.
Well, thank you, Pastor Jeff, for inviting me. He would have to show a very patriotic video before I spoke. There's a special place in my heart for veterans because of the things I've experienced, that God has allowed me to go through on my journey with Him. I would like the veterans to stand one more time so I can see who you are, and this message is particularly for you. Would you shout out your names for me? Master Sergeant. There's another 20-year-old man. Okay. What was it? Okay, Bob Cox? Is that what it is? Okay. Thank you. John West. Navy guy, right? There you go. Dave Pearman. What branch? Air Force. My daughter was in the Air Force. I can't. There you go. That's before Social Security numbers. Yes, sir. Thank you for your service. And was there one more over here? Oh, yes. Randy Moses. What branch? Air Force. Awesome. Now, remain standing. Those who have spouses that served with those veterans during their time in, would you please stand? If you had a military husband, that's what I'm looking for, yes. I would like to recognize you because it takes a special woman to keep a soldier going when times are tough. And let's give them a round of applause, please. Isn't it great to come and worship a place where we have freedom? And the worship this morning was awesome. You in the military can sit down. Sorry, I'm not a real first sergeant anymore. Should have said seats. There you go. I would like to share a story with you, if you will allow me. I would like to say to the veterans here today and those spouses, if you had a loved one, we all know a veteran. We need to thank them for their service. And I thank you very much for your service. I know what you've been through. I've been there. And I dished some of that out too. When I retired in 1994, I had spent 20 days, 13 hours, and 7 minutes in the U.S. military. Veterans know exactly how long they served because they look for the end date. Because I believe in basic, they really figured out quickly that I made a mistake. But some of you had no choice, right? You were drafted. And that's another story. So, let me continue. We all took an oath. I, Alvin Eldridge, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that oath ends with, so help me God. I took that oath on July 9th, 1974, Fort Polk, Louisiana. This is known as Little Vietnam at the time, as an infantry rifleman. June 21st, 1975, I married Diane, my wife. If you'll stand up there, please. She's shy. My wife of 44 years. All right, spent 20 of those years with me as my wife in the military and raised our 3 beautiful girls. June 4th, 1979, that was our first daughter, Amanda, born Fort Hood, Texas. My second daughter, Shauna, born January 28th, 1983. In Fort Lewis, Washington. June 19th, that was June 12th, 1986. My third daughter, Rachel, was born, Fort Lewis, Washington. And then 1987, we were stationed in Wiesbaden, Germany, October of that year. I was deployed to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, September 17th, 1990. And it occurred to me that we had just gone to a European Baptist Association conference in Switzerland. That's their annual event over there. My wife and I had discussed, wow, at 17 and a half years, it looks like I've missed a conflict. That was 1 month prior. And I found myself in the desert and really asking myself, why am I here? So, returned from Desert Shield, Desert Storm in 1991, the first Gulf War. I'd like to share a story of a close friend I laid to rest, an old soldier, on 22 September 2015. And you won't believe where I laid him to rest, the Benzie County Jail. I put the old soldier to rest because he had come to the end of his time. He was trying to do everything by himself, including playing a very dangerous game of being Christian at church, and an angry man at home, out of control, most of the time, very rude, only caring about himself and self-centered, abusive both mentally and physically to his wife. Excuse me. That lasted some 25 years. His youngest daughter and granddaughter moved in with the old soldier and wife. Out of control one day, he grabbed his daughter. His daughter had experienced abuse in her previous marriage and wasn't about to put up with it again. She did the right thing and turned the old soldier into the sheriff's department. The old soldier went to jail on a felony count of domestic abuse. Both the old soldier and his daughter suffer from PTSD. The old soldier from Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and his daughter, who spent 6 years in the Air Force, from the Afghan War and Iraqi wars. They had sacrificed part of their lives for their country, for the freedom that it stands for. I want to share this story not only with Christians, but soldiers, veterans, men and women who sacrificed part of their lives for this country. I know this story to be true because that old soldier was me. That daughter was mine. And I'm very proud of her for doing the right thing. Make me face my illness my mental and physical abuse. The first night in jail was the last of 4 blood moons. This old soldier surrendered to God because I had no one to help me out of this situation. Tired of being angry, hurting the ones I love the most, and angry at the world, waiting to be left, wanting to be left alone, not taking care of my personal hygiene, and was very depressed. Had no friends, also playing a dangerous game, acting like a Christian at church and someone very different at home. I turned to God, whom I walked away from in the first Gulf War. I was a Christian, a deacon, but I let my guard down, my self-control. I began to smoke, which I had quit for almost 10 years. I began to curse and spiraled down from there. I really walked away from God. You see, war is confusing. War is chaos. War is hell. Actually, I think hell must be a little bit more organized than war. Because you see, I know the Army try to reinvent the wheel every year. Go, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. Anyway, the judgment I received from the judge was 1 year probation and a stiff fine. I'd already been counseling with a Christian psychologist who specialized in PTSD and anger management, also counseling with my pastor, Chuck Towsery. You see, I believe that soldiers are spiritually wounded when they come back. Spiritually broken, I should say, not wounded. Spiritually broken when they come back from war. You see, we began at a very early age in basic training when you fire your weapon, and all soldiers do that. You fire at a little square target. World War II, it was big targets. Big square targets, correct? Yes, sir. That's right. See how close to the middle of that or bullseye you could get. All right? So here's the military thinking. When I went through basic training, and a lot of you will remember this, you were zeroing your weapon. That means making it hit the mark every time. That is dead center of a human chest. Okay? You didn't realize it at the time, but it was on a silhouette of a man. And that's how the military uses psychology. Put that little white target on the silhouette of a man. You're shooting a target, but over time, it becomes center of mass for a soldier. So, I say that because you were trained when you grew up not to steal, not to cuss, not to drink, not to smoke, not to commit murder, not destroying things. But you see, actually, when you go to war, that's exactly what you're doing. All of those things. So now, you become thoroughly confused. And the military has a long way to go when you come home from war to debrief you. They're not very good at that. It's like, I'm using you for this time and period, and when you get out, I'm done with you, see you later. And the VA is not very well versed at it either, and I can say that from experience. When I didn't finish my counseling, but after the first year of intense counseling once a week at my personal expense, because you see, I had put in a VA claim in 1994 for post-traumatic stress disorder. I got a letter back saying it was denied. I did it again in 1997. Again denied. In fact, I got a letter that said either your records are missing or they didn't exist. That's quite a letter. I still have that letter today. So, before the judge, I explained to him what I thought was wrong, and I thought it was PTSD. And he encouraged me to begin the VA process again, which I did. In fact, the judge told me that his brother-in-law had experienced tough times with the VA. But through this process, after giving myself back to God, rededicating my life to serve only Him, the VA came back within 3 months approved for PTSD. The sad part is they had to use the arresting document to prove to the VA that I had PTSD. That's a very sad thing. And I've heard stories, Jeff has heard those stories. I'm sorry, Pastor Jeff has heard those stories. I call him brother.
You can call me Jeff.
All right. Where was I? See, an old soldier. Where was I? Oh, yes. I had started that claim 2 months after I'd gone to jail. Very emotional. Showed her the letter, the woman doing my claim. I couldn't believe that. Wow. Either my records are missing or they don't exist. Anyway, she processed that using the document from the arresting authority, and they approved it at 30%. I continued my counseling for that year, and it was very intense counseling. And let me tell you, veterans, if you need help, you need to reach out to someone. 22 veterans a day commit suicide, and that's no joke. You have heard other numbers? No, it's 22 a day. Look at the statistics, and they don't need to be doing that. We need to help them, but veterans, you need to share your stories when asked by a civilian, because a common thing a veteran will do is become recluse. He doesn't want to share because he knows civilians have never walked where he walked, and they won't understand the sacrifices he made, the things he saw. Even in peacetime, you see death as a soldier. I was an air traffic controller after my first 3 years as a rifleman. A lot of death in air traffic control. A lot of pilots that you know from accidents, training accidents. People who went through Vietnam and for some reason got on a small helicopter that's not rated for IFR, and that means in the clouds flying. General wanted to make a point. He wanted the best of the best to fly a mission when the sky obscure, visibility unknown. Helicopter had 3 passengers on board. Very young pilot, a major from Vietnam, and a second lieutenant. The air traffic controller on the ground gave him a clearance to take off at pilot's risk. That aircraft went up into the clouds. They heard a large roar over RPM, and that helicopter came out of the sky upside down. Unfortunately, all 3 of those soldiers didn't make it home that day. And that was training. But you see, we train like that, and the reason we train like that is become the best of the best. So, after my intense training, counseling with Pastor, and this psychologist, I began to feel better. In fact, a lot of people that I knew couldn't believe I was so happy. But you know, the burden was lifted off of me. When you commit sin, sin goes straight to the bones and marrow. You know, Hebrews 4:12 says this: the Word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, even penetrating bone and marrow, and thoroughly justifying the attitudes of the heart. So what I want to say is that I was extremely being blessed, but I was also working hard with God behind me. From that first year, our support group was born. It's because what I went through, not only in the military, but with the VA. You know how to navigate the VA. We know how to do claims with the VA. And we have a guardian angel down in Detroit who happens to be the secretary for the director over all ministries or all medical facilities for the VA. The reason we call her a guardian angel is because she's been in the VA a very long time. She knows how to navigate the system. She was one of those who did judgments for veterans. And she has a heart for veterans. And we can call her anytime and talk with her. And she will tell us exactly what to do. And if you follow exactly what she tells you to do, it goes through. Not every veteran has that kind of guardian angel. So I encourage you veterans, if you have a problem with PTSD or things that you've hidden away and you can't get rid of those wounds and scars by yourself, you need to talk to Pastor Jeff. There is a brother who is blessed with making things come out and helping you through some tough times, but also healing wounds that only God can heal. So the mission that God has sent me on is to talk with veterans. You see, every day is Veterans Day to me. Wherever I go, I see a veteran. Wherever you go, you see a veteran. He might be wearing a hat, it might be a little patch, but walk straight up to him and thank him for his service. Because you know what? I have people today do that, and sometimes it brings tears to my eyes because someone took the time out to recognize a soldier. When I grew up in Oregon, very patriotic family. Father World War II, grandfather World War I. Both men served in the VFW as post commanders, veterans of foreign wars. In the 60s and early 70s, my town could have a parade at the drop of a hat. And it was patriotic. And the American flag always led that parade. Very patriotic. It's all about that flag, you know. It's the essence of why we're all here. Our forefathers, many, many wars have taken place, and that flag still stands. Also, I want to share with you one of the funniest things my father saw in World War II. In fact, I didn't even know this. My father wouldn't even talk to me about the war because veterans dealt with it in a different way from World War II, World War I. And that's those organizations, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Eagles, other clubs, would get together over a drink, and that's when military guys share. They were safe. They had a place to go to talk with each other because only they understood, not the civilians. So, to make a long story short, my father, I didn't even know this until we laid him to rest in 2010. He was wounded by 2 wooden bullets on the beach of Normandy. It's strange, isn't it? That's how low the Germans were on ammo, making wooden bullets. Okay? I happened to receive his little diary that my grandfather and grandmother gave him as he went into the military. Some of you recall those little books, A Diary for a Soldier. And the funniest thing he had printed in there was he had walked into a town, and the tallest thing in that town was 2 stories up, and it was a bathtub being held up by the drain pipe. That's the devastation that he saw in Germany. In fact, he came and spent 3 months with us before I went to the Gulf War, and he had a very tough time seeing Germany in a green, upheld, normal state. And he simply shared with me one night, I can't take this because I saw Germany in a different light. And he knew that I wouldn't understand because I hadn't experienced war yet. So he had some very deep wounds. And to tell you the truth, I don't know if they were ever healed or not. But I can tell you that some scars will never go away. You have triggers. Pastor Jeff knows about triggers. It can be any one of your 5 senses, actually 6 senses. You know? It's just like that video. When you see a soldier laid to rest, that's the ultimate sacrifice. In fact, the Bible says what? About giving a life for another. That's it. No greater love. Yeah, it was wartime. And there are men who did courageous things. I want to tell you, I would never trade my journey for another. I do want to say about my daughter that she grew up as my hunting partner. I wouldn't let her join the Army. I made her join the Air Force, thinking it was better. She has severe PTSD, is living with us. I wish she was here today. She has a service dog, and that service dog is amazing. It calms her down. Animals know. Who made the animals? Our Father in heaven. You know, you can talk to an animal and it doesn't talk back. You can love an animal, but it loves you back. So, the other day, I was talking with my daughter. She did the right thing. I'd broken a relationship with her since she turned me in. I was heartbroken. And she left, moved to Alabama. I couldn't talk to her. The judge ordered that. Couldn't see her. That hurt me deeply. Knowing what we've both been through, it was a lot of prayer, a lot of forgiveness. But finally one day she called and talked to me on the phone. And I just simply asked to forgive me. And I love you. You're always welcome here. And in the midst of that, my wife suffered along with her. But I can tell you now things... well, let me back up a little bit and just tell you, when my daughter did 6 years in the Air Force. She did it with intelligence. She went into the intelligent field working with Global Hawk and Predator. She would see things from the sky. And let me explain something. You see videos from those drones. In the Air Force, they watch that for 12 hours, 5 days a week, and then they have 3 days off. But they have it split. One group sees video with no sound. The other group sees sound with no video, or hears sound, sees sound. Yeah, military intelligence? Oxymoron there. So, but these two different groups will make an analysis and send it to a third group who makes a determination on what's to be done. My daughter had a very hard time with this because she had joined the Air Force to be an X-ray technician. But the school was full and they sent her to intelligence. I can tell you she's seen things that I can only imagine. You see, I saw it from a frontal view. People who see it from the air see 360 degrees around, and that's a big difference. Okay? She has severe PTSD. She finally, she had a claim in for 4 years when she moved in with us the first time. I made a call to our guardian angel finally. She asked for our help. And within 2 weeks, she received $147,000 because the VA had not done that claim. Sat on somebody's desk for 4 years. Okay? There's unfortunate people out there. But that changed the life of my daughter. However, it didn't cure her PTSD. Yeah, it paid her bills, but it didn't cure her PTSD. Finally, she went in at the beginning of this summer. She lived in Alabama and went to the VA and said, I really need your help because if you don't help me, I'm going to do something stupid. So they sent her to a civilian mental health ward. And I've been there. I was in Bethesda, Maryland. A total of 2 weeks in mental health from Wiesbaden, Germany after the Gulf War because I didn't know what was wrong with me. So the civilian doctor looked at her records and said, oh my gosh, with his team, VA hasn't been taking care of you, have they? No, and they had her on different medications. She gained almost 140 pounds. In fact, the doctor said, oh, I see the VA is contributing to the opioid problem here in America. Our psychiatrists in the VA are so overwhelmed, they see you once a month. That's all they can. When people are begging to have weekly sessions, it takes more than once a month. So that's why our support group was made. And our pastor, with his leadership, believes that our soldiers pay for nothing at this meeting. You get a meal. We have a time of, we say the pledges when we open, Pledge of Allegiance. Then we get into some hard stuff. Sometimes it's fun stuff. But it's a group of men and women who share a common bond, who at the drop of a hat can be hating each other but also loving each other. Jeff has heard some weird things. In fact, we have to teach Jeff sometimes about what we're talking about. And he'll stop us too to find out what it is. But I can share with you, just like my daughter, after her stay in mental health, civilian, The civilian psychiatrist said this, "I'll take care of this for you." He took her all off that medication, put her on one medication, a new medication, and it was like, our daughter is back. 3 weeks later, she received a letter from the VA saying she's 100% disabled permanently. Took a civilian doctor. Doesn't the VA have the best doctors in the world? You would think. We rely on civilians to get VA stuff done. That's weird. So, if you know a veteran who's having a problem, please ask him, is there anything I can do? We've had veterans who brothers were so much into alcohol that they lost their families. One, I can tell you, 5 wives. It's a 5th marriage. Couldn't figure it out. The anger, the hatred. We know where it comes from now. So, if you know a veteran, have him share his story. Don't let him commit suicide. And I'm going to share the last thing with you. A year ago, this day was Don Weidengartner's Day of Salvation, a man who served 27 years in the military. 6 of those years active duty, and but a total of 27 with the National Guard. It was the week after our Veterans Day service. A gentleman was sitting in the seat after the service. The pastor went over and introduced himself, and the pastor called me over to introduce him as a soldier. And, you can tell a soldier when he's hurting or he's hiding something, because many of them do not take care of themselves. They don't take care of their personal hygiene. They let their appearance go. They don't care. They become recluse. They don't want anything to do with anybody. But thank God, his neighbor, who is also a veteran, was praying for him and asked him to come to church. That day, Don Weingarten said these words, "I'm ready to commit suicide, but my friend asked me to come to church today." So my pastor asked him if he was ready to receive Jesus, because at the end of each service we share the gospel. Well, he said yes, and the pastor turned to me and said, "Al, you lead him through the sinner's prayer." So I did that. And you could literally see Don's countenance change. It began to glow. And here was a man who had been in tears and was very happy after he accepted Christ and made the Lord his Savior. The next day I asked Don that day, "Do you have a Bible?" He said, "No, I'll bring you one tomorrow morning." I went to his house, 8:30 in the morning. Don was up, clean shaven, a new creation, fully dressed, and a smile from ear to ear. "Come on in." Gave him the Bible, and we read Scripture together. Jeff has witnessed the change in that man to this day. I want to share with you 2 weeks ago, on November 3rd, he was baptized. He accepted baptism. He was baptized as a child but didn't understand that, but now he knows what it's all about. Death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. His personal statement of faith. So you see, was it worth it? Yes, it was worth it. We sacrifice holidays. We sacrifice birth. We sacrifice death. We sacrifice our families. And it was my very first commander who told my wife, before we got married, at dinner at his house, that the military comes first. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it when you're married. Okay? What did we hear in the military all the time? Well, if the military wanted you to have a wife, they would have issued you one. Okay? She's known in my house as the commander-in-chief, chief of staff. I'm just a first sergeant taking orders. The sacrifices were made. They're behind me, and I look forward to what God has gotten in store for me, because God has taken me. This is the 4th year. We began our 4th year in September for the military or the Veterans Support Group. And any of you veterans are welcome to come and share with us a meal in your story. 4 years. God has taken me places I could never imagine I would be speaking at. So, I want to tell you again that this man knows a lot. He helps a lot. But I want to thank you again, your veterans. And if you veterans would just stand here again. The veterans, stand up. On your feet, soldiers, come on. Wake you all up. And especially Jeff's grandfather. Oh my gosh. Right after World War II. And where did you serve? Where did you serve?
In Fort Benning, Georgia.
Fort Benning, Georgia. As an infantryman? Yes.
7th Airborne, was the combat engineers, and right at the end they were changing to 307 Airborne.
Wow.
And I went to the CO I only had about 2 months left of my enlistment. And I went and asked him about jump school. He said, well, you'd have to enlist for another 4 years. I didn't think it's been 2 years, I might have been 4 years too long. So it was, I wouldn't trade it for nothing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to thank you again for your service, each one of you. Thank you, brothers and comrades. You know what it's all about. So I just want to say a prayer over those veterans and their spouses, if you'll bow with me. Father, I thank you for this time you set aside for me to share my story. And Father, it's not about me. It's about giving you all the glory for what you have brought me through. And for these men, Lord, I lift them up to you. If there's deep scars, wounds that need to be healed, heal them, Father. Direct them to another veteran. Direct them to this Pastor Jeff. Direct them to someone that can help them and share with them that they're not alone. There's many, many veterans out there who suffer today because they come home spiritually broken. Father, I ask that you heal with them. You heal them. You be with our veterans who are today in faraway places, countries that have different traditions. I pray a blanket of protection over each and every one of those soldiers, Lord. Bring them home safely. We never want to see one come home in a casket. But Father, again, I thank you for your love. I thank you for this time. I thank you for this church you've placed here in Traverse City to do your mission. And that's to reach the lost for you. And thank you again, God. I give you the glory and the praise for what you've done in my life to make me a true man. In Jesus' name, amen.